Hi everyone, this is Balázs from RacingBrick and this is the latest episode of my Rebrickable series. LEGO released tons of Formula 1 sets last year and apparently they won't stop this year either. A lot of people love Formula 1 of course. The first race of the season is just around the corner and it will be more exciting than usual. So you bought your LEGO F1 sets, but what if you don't want to keep the collection on the shelf forever collecting dust? The rising popularity of display-focused LEGO sets is a hot topic these days. Some people love the collectible aspect, they buy a set, build it once and proudly display it. Others are less enthusiastic and miss the good old days when LEGO was more about building and rebuilding, focusing on versatility rather than branding. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole today, but I do want to show you something interesting. The Speed Champions Formula 1 collection is a very specialized series with tons of printed and stickered branding. The entire inventory is designed to support the original build, but not much else. So, does that mean you really cannot build anything else from these sets? Of course not. Tell me another franchise that's super popular in the LEGO world. No, not Peppa Pig, the other one. Yes, Star Wars. So, what if I told you that all of these Speed Champions F1 sets, and yes, I also did Lightning McQueen because, well, reasons, so they can actually be transformed into starships from the Star Wars universe? Well, the creative minds publishing instructions on Rebrickable are here to help. I will rebuild these 4 sets today, and since I already mentioned McQueen, let's start with that one. A quick note before we begin, all of the builds shown today have links in the description and in the pinned comment. Another important detail, all of these models can be rebuilt using parts only from the original sets, but they do use some of the spare pieces included. I usually keep the spare parts from each Speed Champions wave together in small bins, so this won't be an issue for me, but you might want to check the inventory before starting your build. Luckily, there's a very useful feature for that on Rebrickable. If you scroll down on the page of an alternate build, you will see the original set listed on the left side, and on the right there is a comparison link. If you click that link, you can compare the inventory of the custom build with the original set. Spares are excluded by default, which means you can see in advance exactly which small pieces you might need to find to complete the build. One more thing to keep in mind, some instructions show printed parts but don't include stickered elements, so if you are rebuilding your own set, it is useful to keep the final images open so you can see which stickered piece should be used in certain places. When I was researching alternate builds for this project, I immediately fell in love with the look of the McXwing. I knew I had to build it. It's a creation of Wolf. This is the designer's profile page. That motor back there looks pretty smooth as well. But today we are focusing on the McXwing. The instructions cost £3, so let's see what we get for our money. The build is quite dense. Every step adds a good number of parts, so it's probably not ideal for beginners, but the building process is logical and includes some nice tricks. There's no sticker guidance as I mentioned, so I had to check the final image to know which 4x4 tile goes here. Here's the front assembly, and it connects nicely to the rest of the build. We also get a display stand. It seems to use one extra black 1x2 plate compared to the available inventory, so I simply skipped the front one and it still works fine since most of the weight is toward the back. And here is the finished McXwing on the stand with posable wings. It looks great. I really like the final appearance, and the existing branding actually fits surprisingly well with the spaceship look. I would even say it's swooshable, although you should handle it carefully. The next model on the list is built from a more recent set, the APX GP team race car from the F1 movie. The designer is Brick Cycling, and as you can see, he actually created Xwing versions of the entire 2025 Speed Champions Formula 1 lineup, plus this one. This build is a bit special because the original set comes with 2 minifigures, so he designed a 2-seater spaceship. The instructions cost €2.9. Here is the main body of the ship. Up to this point it feels like a fairly sturdy build. Once the wings are attached, things change a little. The lower wings are connected with clips and hold quite well, but the upper wings use a slightly weaker connection method. Because of that, the wings are not really posable this time, but the model does allow you to see 2 minifigures inside. And just like the previous build, this one is also carefully swooshable. The product page also includes instructions for a few modifications. You can convert it into a single-seater version, or even tweak the design so it can fit R2-D2. Our third Xwing today comes from Noping Grid, a mock designer with a very impressive portfolio. There are lots of Star Wars alternate builds, including a crazy Technic one made from the heavy-duty tow truck, which looks amazing. There is also an awesome Enzo replica built from parts of the Ferrari FXXK, but today we are focusing on this one. Once again, it has a different design style and the instructions cost $3.7. The build includes some very clever solutions. For example, check out the minifigure ski used at the front. I also really like the creative way the wings are attached without hinges or clips. The upper wings are a bit more difficult to move, it is easier to adjust the lower ones. However, they are surprisingly sturdy and hold well in every position. The display stand also allows you to show them in different configurations, and yes, this one also passes the swoosh test. Now let's take a look at the final build, which is different for several reasons. It was designed by Kalya Keio. The username definitely has Finnish vibes, although I'm not entirely sure if I pronounced it correctly. This is actually the designer's only Rebrickable upload, but it caught my attention because of the shaping and the creative use of decorated parts that match the Millennium Falcon style. Yes, this one is not an Xwing, but it's close enough. And another big difference, the instructions are completely free. During the build, this model feels a bit more fragile, and some of the angles rely on parts that are not fully pushed into place. The instructions also use a few floating sub-assemblies that are connected later. That approach usually works fine unless you reach a step where the model can no longer rest flat on the table, which happens here with these brackets. There is also a display stand, but you more or less have to figure out yourself how the two parts connect. I believe this is the correct orientation. The final result looks fantastic though. It creates a very dynamic display pose on the table, but this is clearly one of those builds that you assemble once and then avoid touching again. To achieve the shaping, some structural compromises were necessary, so I definitely would not recommend swooshing this one. So folks, these were 4 alternate builds that transform Speed Champions cars into starships from the Star Wars universe. I think they clearly prove that even a heavily decorated small LEGO set does not limit creativity. You simply need to approach it with the mindset of a kid and a good amount of imagination, and you can create some really fun and unique display models. Rebuilding a Speed Champions F1 car is also incredibly quick. It literally took me less than 10 minutes to disassemble this one and roughly sort the parts, so there's really no excuse to leave them in their original form forever. Let me know what you think about these alternate builds. Have you tried any of them already? Would you give them a chance? Let's talk about it in the comment section. If you enjoyed this video, then please give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe with notifications, as more exciting LEGO videos are coming soon. See you next time, bye bye.